Hello everyone. Hi, this is SharePoint Power Hour. I'm Laura Rogers. Welcome. SharePoint Power Hour is a live show that we do every Wednesday at 11 Central, streaming on YouTube using a Google Hangout. And Power Hour is where we talk about SharePoint and Office 365 and basically a lot of things that you can do out of the box. So we don't delve into custom programming. We don't delve into hardcore server admin. We touch on a lot of power user topics and have conversations and do demos, and it's very informal. So before we get started and introduce everybody, I just kind of want to show you around in the interface in here, because in Google Hangouts there's a Q&A, but it's just not very obvious. So when you are looking at us if you're looking at us in YouTube, there's a yellow link that takes you straight over to the Google Hangout. And once you're in the Google Hangout, there is at the top right of your screen, by default it shows an app on the right panel called Showcase, I believe, but there is the ability to switch between apps. So it's a little icon that looks like some squares, and when you click that, it lets you switch over to the Q&A app, and then that's where you can ask us questions as we go. So feel free to shout it out in the Q&A and say hello if you'd like to, if you found it. And today we have again, feel free to ask questions the entire time. Today we have a guest with us, but we'll go ahead and let our usuals, Joelle and Ryan, introduce themselves. Again, I'm Laura Rogers. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and we all work at Rackspace Hosting, and this is our team that does our weekly show. So I'll let you introduce yourself, Joelle.
Hello, everyone. I am Joelle Farley. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. I am Joelle Farley. I am a consultant on the Business Solutions team. I am based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and I've been working with SharePoint for about 6 or 7 years now. And I work a lot with Forms, so I'm looking forward to this presentation for sure.
No pressure. Hi, everybody. I'm Ryan Keller. I am out of northern Colorado. My job on the team is the SharePoint branding guy. Been doing that for about 4.5 years now, and I kind of lose track. I've been working with SharePoint since the year 2007, and looking forward to the presentation today also.
Thanks. Okay, so real quick, we have our guest Mark Rackley in the room here, and the reason he's here is this next Forms product that I'm doing, this new demo that I'm doing, is something that he created, and it's something he created himself, and that we're going to be demoing and trying out, and it's sort of a kind of a power user tool, kind of borders on dev, but not really. But Mark, I'll let you tell everybody who you are.
Oh, I have to speak now? So I'm Mark Rackley. I'm not a racker, but some could say I'm the original racker, right? Maybe? So yeah, I have been doing SharePoint development since 2007. I'm a solutions architect at Capspire consulting firm. And I basically wrote Forms7 a few years ago because a client really didn't want to use InfoPath. They wanted a different alternative to creating forms in SharePoint. So I created this tool that allows you to create forms with HTML and JavaScript. And like you said, it kind of borders the edge of power user developer. But I'm currently adding to it to hopefully make it easier for power users to use. So we'll see how it goes. It'll be interesting.
Awesome. Okay, so I put a link in the little Showcase app in the Google Hangout straight to your blog site that I'm going to be going to kind of show how this works. And thank you, Keith, for the comment in the chat window. He said who came up with the groovy new song and video. Actually, Tavis, who's not here today, he's in a meeting, he wrote the song, and that's him singing too. So that's pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start demoing this and share my screen. And again, we've been demoing a lot of sort of different Forms products. So that's kind of where this comes from, because everyone keeps asking me, what about InfoPath? What are we supposed to do now? And all right, so I clicked. So I'm sharing my screen now. You guys can see it, right? All right. So you guys, I guess let me know if you see any questions in the Q&A since I won't be looking over there really. All right, so this is just my demo site. So in my demo site, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be creating a list in SharePoint and then using Forms7 to customize it. The awesome thing about Forms7 is it is a Codeplex solution that you can download, but he has made it so that now you don't even have to download, install anything at all. So that's really, really cool, I think. So because it's you probably get more buy-in and it's less trouble to go through when you don't have to actually install anything in SharePoint. All right, so I'm going to start off by creating this is just a little demo site that I have. I'm going to create just a contacts list in SharePoint, and we'll talk about just how to customize that. So I'll just go to Add an App and Contacts. Okay, Forms7 Contacts. I'm just going to call it that. And then, all right, so there it is. Now, I'll show you. I shared this link, so Mark will probably be sharing this on Twitter as well, but M. Rackley, M-R-A-C-K-L-E-Y on Twitter. Hint, hint. So this is, I shared it in the little, the Showcase app. So this is his blog, SharePointHillbilly.com. He's in Arkansas. And this is the page that he's created that actually lets you go create the way you want your form to look. So it's kind of interesting. It's kind of unique because I'm actually doing this live in this little interface he created on his site, and it helps to go to Chrome, by the way. Helps if you open this in Chrome browser. So what I'm going to do is the steps are, create a SharePoint list. I have to go create a multi-line plain text field in my list, and then I go basically start going through these steps that he enumerates here. So I'll just copy this and say, all right, here's my list, and I'll go create this field that he said to create with the exact name and multiple lines of text, and be sure to make it so that it is plain text, not enhanced rich text. All right, so now that field exists. So now let's go back to see what we're supposed to be doing next. So the next thing that I'm going to do is just decide where we're going to store these files that we're going to generate. So I'm going to use, like he said in here, I'm just going to use my site assets library in my site because that's just that's the purpose of that library, is to keep stuff like that you might reference, to keep it in there. So then what I do is I just need to start deciding what fields I want to have on my form. So since this is a contact list, I need to say like first name, last name, and things like that, right? So I'll just say first name, and this is what it's going to say on the form. This is a single line of text. So I can see that he gives me all these options here to say what kind of field it is. And you'll notice you have a few ones that are actually a little different than what you see in SharePoint as your field types. Is look at this. He has not only date field and things like that, but email. So you can make it so that it has to be an email address, social security number, phone number, and then even a little repeating section, kind of like an info path where you have a repeating table. So those are all the different types of fields I can add in here. So here's the part that's going to be the trickiest. So if you wish to promote this field to a corresponding SharePoint list field, you have to know the internal name of it. So if I went through all these steps and I created this form and did not put any values for any SharePoint form fields, people would still be able to fill out a form in this form we're generating, but it wouldn't populate the columns in my list. I have to define exactly which columns I need to populate. So the part about this is that I have to know, and he enforced in all caps, right, Mark? Internal name.
Has to be internal.
So if I want, yes. So if I want first name to be the column that I'm using, and I want it to go into this column in SharePoint, see how when I hover over first name, I have my little status bar at the bottom of IE. It tells me field equals first name. So I can go look at this, shortcut to this, if I want to. And so this is going to be the most time-consuming part. So this is the part you need. Field equals first name. So to make it so you have less ability to screw something up like I did when I first tried this. You might want to just copy that out of there, because I think it is even case sensitive, if I'm not mistaken. And in the past, in dealing with these, it has been. So that's the one that I need to put in this little box right here. So then when I click Create Field, look at that. So it's creating my form right here on the fly as I'm going, and it's going to keep adding them to this form. So I'll just go ahead and do the next one's going to be last name. And then I just happen to know that in SharePoint in a contact list, the last name is actually the title field. So I can create field like that. And I'm going to create a couple more in here, and then we'll kind of delve into how they look and what these other little files do in here. All right. And again, feel free to ask questions. Oh, okay, let's see. Jack says +1 for the O365 users not having to install anything. I know, it's huge, right? And then Marcy says, yes, I can see your screen. Cool, thanks everybody for the feedback. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to my little list and see what other fields I might want to put in here. I'm not going to go, do every single one of them, but I'll do email address because that's one of the field types it gives me. So when I hover over that, I can see that it says field equals email in my little status bar down there. Is there another way, Mark, that I'm not aware of for going to look at what those internal names are?
Another good way to do it, in fact, it might be a better way, but again, not really power user-ish. Maybe I should provide a link to do that, is you can type in a REST query that will actually spit out to you all of the information about your list, and when it spits it out, it shows the internal name.
Oh, nice.
You can also, if you look at the source of a page, like a form, it will tell you the like if you go to the default forms and do a view page source,
yeah.
You can also see the internal names there. Yeah, if you click on new item,
okay,
view
so
page source. Actually, the easier way, I'll even show you the easier way than that. Go ahead and X out of that. Press F12, which opens up developer tools, and go to the, which one is it? The DOM Explorer next to the console. And see that little arrow with the square?
Arrow with a square?
At the top, the icon right under F12.
Yeah.
Click on that. And now when you hover over move over your form, it should put little boxes, like move over the form itself.
Oh, the form. Oh.
Yeah, and you see how it puts a little box around the elements. So click right there on full name. And if you look, now if you look in the source, the HTML there, if you scroll up a little bit, you can see the internal field name. You'll see it right.
Is it that?
One more up. One more up. You can see it in the comments field. Field internal name.
Oh, okay.
And so you could do that for every. So you can click on that little arrow with the square, then click on your field, and then look at the source. And that's another way you can do it.
Interesting. Good to know. Yeah. Okay. All right. So internal.
And that works in IE as well. IE and Chrome.
All right, so I'm going to say, let's see, let me pick something like a phone number. So I have over home phone, it says it's just called home phone. I'll go do that one. Oh, I didn't add email yet, so I have to click create field, and I can do required field for any of these. So I'd highly recommend that if your field is required in your list, you would definitely want to make it a required field on this form, or else you'll probably get an error. So kind of make sure that those match up. I know off the top of my head that last name is definitely required. So there are things that I can do to go in here and tweak this, but I did not remember to make it required when I first created it. So we'll go delve into some of that too. So I did email address, we'll do phone, and make that a phone number. And then phone is, we'll do business phone here, and that is the field equals work phone. Okay. Oops, one word. Okay, and then create field. And then
I should point out that also if you don't make a field required that's supposed to be required, it will still work. It just won't populate that field.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It will. Will it create an item in the
Absolutely.
list?
Yep, but if you go to the edit, if you go to the default edit form and try to edit it, it won't let you save in the default edit form until you fill out that field.
Okay, good to know. All right, and then we've got, I'll go ahead and do like a notes field, which is field equals comments down there. And let's see. I'll do a multiple lines of text, and it's comments. I'll go ahead and do a drop down too. Let's see. Drop down in here is going to be, so department in my list here is, I think no, I'll use company. It doesn't have department. So company is not a drop down in SharePoint. It's just a single line of text, but I can still make it a drop down in this form. So that's field equals company. So go over here and say company. Make it a drop down. I'm just going to type some things in here. Contoso, AdventureWorks. You know the drill. Okay, and then that's going to be company. So think about. Oh yeah, sure.
Is knowing the internal name only needed for promoting fields? Sorry if this was already answered.
Yes. If you're not going to promote the field to a SharePoint list field, there's no need for an internal field name.
Cool.
Yeah. So the company that I created, when I first created this, had a lot of HR forms, and the forms had like 75 fields, but they only needed to promote 5 of the fields because that's all they cared about creating views on. So that worked out well for them that way.
Nice. Also, what I was going to say is, I was just about to say kind of something similar in that InfoPath form library forms have been really nice in the past because I've used those in situations where you have like 100 or 200 fields and you don't need every single one of them to be a column in your list or library. So that's been one of the benefits of InfoPath. So that could definitely be a benefit of this, is that the data is going to get stored in SharePoint, but it's not necessarily going to be in a bunch of columns unless you specifically have those columns created. All right, so let's see what this is going to look like. If I go over to Forms Source, he's generated a bunch of code behind the scenes, and there's nothing yet on the script source thing. So when I'm ready to put this in SharePoint, what I have to do is I have to put my list name here in this little box and generate that script. Before I do that, though, there are a couple of things that you can do. You can actually go in here and just tweak this HTML if you want to. So, like, I want to put, you have to know HTML, of course. But, like, if you need a quick little HTML editor to be able to do something, I mean, just create, like, an announcement in a SharePoint site or something on a publishing site or in a content editor web part, and just go look at the code, because those are just kind of quick ways to be able to go kind of see the visual ability to go in and look at what the code is behind just something simple. So first name, last name, and then I'm going to say, I'm just going to put a break in here. And then when I go back to Form HTML, I can refresh it and look at that. It put my little break in there. So then I can also go to Form Source and say, well, I meant to put this company one up above notes, so I can just take that company little section there and cut it and go up there and paste it. And then, so I can kind of go in here and just mess around and put some page breaks, put like a table, divs, whatever your preferred way of laying things out it would be, and then just keep refreshing the HTML.
Jack has an additional question. What do you mean by promote? Is the other data still accessible by another means? If so, how?
That is going to be in that custom field that we created.
And you can actually,
right?
There is some reporting functionality within Forms7 as well, which is not going to, there is no tool, there's no power user tool for it. You would have to write a couple of lines of script. But it uses a library called data tables and will actually generate a report of that data that's the data you don't promote. So you still can get to it and report on it. You can export it to Excel and play with it that way.
Very cool. Okay,
but you can't do an InfoPath.
Oh, nice. So one of the things that I'll demo, though, is I'll go in and put this form and show you how to put it in SharePoint, and then we'll go look at that actual data in that field that it's stored in, and then some of that other additional stuff. But great question. All right, so I'm going to go back to my screen sharing. Okay, can everybody see it? It's got a little extra button that says present to everyone in here, but I think that means when I do that it just covers up everybody's faces. So I think that everybody can see my screen now, even if I don't click that. All right. So now I have my form, and you saw that I customized the form source a little bit and was able to just sort of visually rearrange some of this stuff. And so again, you could, if you know HTML, you can put some tables and divs and things to do whatever you want to do to make it pretty. And we're going to have more examples of that as well. But the next step I have is going to be to enter the name of my SharePoint list and generate the script source. So my SharePoint list is over here. Yeah, I called it Forms7 space contacts. So this one will actually take a space, so it's not gonna, you don't need to put a %20 or anything in there. So then I click generate script source. It says, yay, SharePoint Hillbilly. That's my script. Thanks, SharePoint Hillbilly.
Hey, you're welcome.
And then I have these two. So I have form source and then I have script source. All right, so the next step, and we'll just go kind of read what he says to do in here. So I'm going to take my form source and my script source, and I'm going to basically put those just in some text files. And so I go just copy all this data. And then notice, Mark, that when I clicked to generate the source, it added this div at the beginning,
yes,
at the end of that's pretty much all it changed in the form source.
Correct.
I'm going to go copy that into Notepad, paste it in there, and save it as, actually I have one on my desktop I was playing around with earlier. I'm just going to replace it. I'm just going to call it formsource.txt, like that. And then I'm going to take this script source and go in Notepad again and just copy all that and put it in there, save as, and just write my little script source file. Fine. All right, so now that I have my files, the next step that it's going to take me to is I have to create a web part page to put these files on. That's where people would go to fill this form out. So the quickest way in SharePoint to go create a web part page that I found is to go just to my out-of-the-box Site Pages library, and then in the Files drop-down you can click. I can't stand wiki pages in SharePoint. They're a huge pet peeve of mine. They drive me nuts. So I always prefer web part pages anyway. So it
does work in wiki pages, by the way. I just prefer web part pages as well.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Same page with you there.
So that never happens.
Yeah, really. All right, so I'm going to say, just going to call it Wednesday test, and I can put it in, even though I'm creating it, I started from site pages when I created it, I can go put it in just any library in my site. So I actually have a library that I created called Dashboards, where I go put stuff like this in there. All right, so now I have a nice empty web part page. So what we need to do is we're going to be putting two different content editor web parts on the page. So I go to my little media and content category over here, and good old content editor web part that's been around since forever, since the beginning of SharePoint, I think. And I'll go add that to my page. And then I'm just going to go do that again real quick and go add another one to my page. All right, so now I've got two of those. And then I have to, so there's a little trick in SharePoint to where you can, instead of actually putting content inside of your content editor web part, you can just make it point to some other file, and it's kind of a rarely used functionality, but we need to get the link to that file before we can do it. So I did not upload my files yet, so these are the ones that I had put in here yesterday, so I actually am going to go override those, and I've got script source and form source just on my computer, and I'm going to have to go put those. So I have to go put those somewhere in SharePoint where I'll be able to go reference them. So again, just any library, I'm just putting them in site assets. So then I need to know the URL to each one of these. So I'll go to form source and just copy shortcut, and then go back over to my little dashboard that I just created in my dashboards library. So, oops, that's not the same one. Hold on, let me go back. Wednesday test. All right, So I don't want to go, so in a content editor, the first thing you might tend to do is click here to add new content. That is not what you're going to do for these. You're going to go straight to the web part settings. So you can see that this solution kind of borders on, it's still kind of power user-y. What do you guys think about that? Kind of, you still have to, you have to know kind of things like internal names and how to work with web parts and things, but it's not super, you know, you're not having to write code. So I think this is definitely within the bounds of what we do in Power Hour. What was that?
And it's free.
It's free, yes, huge. So I went and pointed to that file. So I go edit web part. So one web part has to point to the form source, and one web part has to point to the script source. So I'm just going to go change. So I'm just going to, basically they're both just text files, and one, again, it's in this little content link section here. So
and what you can also do for the demo, by the way, is add another web part maybe to the footer or something that is the actual list. So that can actually, you can kind of see it in the.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of do that when I demo. Just easy to show the demo in the list, or the data in the list.
I'll do that. I'll just put my little default view down there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the real world situation, you would not want them to have that little new item button because you don't want them using the out of the box one. Okay. So another thing that kind of I definitely would do is go hide this other web part, and that doesn't appear to hurt anything. So I did this when I was testing it yesterday. So the one that doesn't show the actual form on it, which I think is the script source, right?
Correct.
That's the one that you can hide, and then you can, of course, just like any other web part, you can go make your web part say something that makes sense, like new contact form or something like that. It's just, we had a whole other Power Hour we did on all these different web part settings. Okay, so I'll stop editing that. What should we do? Should we go ahead and try and fill one out?
We should say a prayer first. But,
so, let's see. Let's see what it does if I make it not an actual, well, I'll do that in a minute. Let me just do it normal. I'm not going to put a phone number. I'll just leave this default. And kind of in that little form source little interface, I could have moved that button code to the bottom if I wanted to, right?
Yeah, and the whole thought is that you can take that HTML from that form source and give it to a designer who can drop it in Dreamweaver or however they want, and they can design the form to look as pretty as they want, and they just need to make sure that here's the HTML for the form. Now make it look good.
Very cool. Yeah. Ryan, does that seem like fun to you? You're the visual guy, right? The branding guy.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, because he's probably rubbing his hands together. All right, I'm gonna try this out. All right, so look at that. So I filled it out and hit submit, and it gave me a little message that said form submit was successful. ID equals 1, and then it put an item in my list. So someone was asking, kind of, if you're not filling the data in and promoting it to a column, where the heck is the data? So let's see. I'll go click Edit Item in here, and remember I added that Forms7 data column. That's where it's storing all the data, right, Mark?
Yes. Yeah, it's stored in what's called a JSON object, which is a comment object used for storing information. And there's a lot of like jQuery libraries that work with JSON objects, so you could easily pull all that data out and put it into some jQuery library to do reporting on it, graphing on it, and stuff like that. So.
Nice. All right,
again,
so
not really a power usery thing at that point, but there's a lot of options you can do with it.
Some power users like me, we kind of border, kind of right on the edge of that. So probably the first thing some people watching might be thinking would be, well, I don't want to see that. I don't want people to see that on my form. So let me just show you guys, if you're not aware, just the quick way that I can go to just any list and hide a field like that. So I'm going to go to my contact list, and if I go to my list settings and go to advanced settings and turn on the ability to manage content types and click OK. Then once I do that, I'll have this little content type section in the middle here. And again, I'm doing this in Office 365. It's 365 or on premises, either one of those. So then I go click on whatever it says here, whatever my content type is for that particular list that I'm on. and then I can go pick and choose which columns I want to hide. So I'll go to Form7 data and make it hidden. So if you have people that are still using that out-of-the-box form at any point, then that would be hidden from them. Now, the cool thing also that Mark pointed out about his little, I'll go to my Wednesday test here, is that I have that query string that I can pass in here. So what was it? Just ID, right?
Yep, form ID.
Oh, form ID?
Yeah.
So I do form ID equals 1, and then, wait a minute, did I do that right?
Capital I, capital D.
Oh, okay. Lowercase f.
Yes.
There it is. All right. So then if I ever want to be able to reference this page later, reference that specific item later, I can just send that as a query string to this page. So that way, it would take extra work, of course, to build an interface to where they're only using this special page you created, but that gives you the ability to at least go back to a specific item later. And you could even have like one page that's the new contact form, and then another page where that's where people are filling in some other fields that maybe the initial person didn't have available to them. So like approvers or something like that, you could create a separate web part page for them and be able to pass that parameter in. So like the email that you send somebody to approve something could have a parameter sending them to a special page with that special form you created, and so on. So there's a lot that you can do with the freedom of having that query string, right? Joelle, I can see the wheels turning. Are you getting ideas for this? Yeah, she does a lot of these out-of-the-box solutions too. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. All right, so the next thing that we were going to do is look at kind of just some ideas of other ways that this could be stylized. So I know that you sent me a link today. Let me go open that one up. Timesheet.
And this does work in SharePoint 2007, 2010, and 2013. So you're not limited to just
Huge.
SharePoint 2013. Yeah.
Huge. Does anybody in the little? I know that there are 20 people watching here. Do y'all think this is awesome? Do you think this is something you can work with, or do you think you have any kind of? Just let us know if anything is confusing, or if it looks like this is something you could use, or if you're getting ideas for it. I think again it's awesome because it's just, first of all, it's free, it's no installation, and it's just something that anybody who has the ability to just manage content in SharePoint could go do this. You don't have to be a site manager necessarily or admin or anything. All right, so this is your little timesheet example you gave here. So
Yes.
Is this something I can actually just fill this out right on the screen?
You can't because you're not signed in. So you can go up there and put form ID equals on one of those numbers 1 through 6, so you can see it filled out. So if you put in so you can see it with some data in it. And this also, a couple of things that this one does that yours didn't do is it's got the repeating content field.
Mm-hmm.
It's also got that project drop-down, which is populated from a project list, and then it's also I've also added some JavaScript so that it adds up the hours whenever you put in hours for a day.
Oh.
So if you just type in an hour in one of those fields, it'll actually you can see it add real time do a sum of that total, and you can click on Add Row. It'll show you adding a row. You just can't save it because you're not signed in.
Oh, okay. So when I've got, so first of all, this is just the actual SharePoint items that I can go open up and look at kind of how it's stored in there. Yes.
Correct.
Just save a cookie on my computer. All right. So for yours, you really only save the person's name and the week, with that field.
Yes.
And everything else is just buried in this Form7 data.
Correct.
But so with the rows in here, so that's just stored as so it's just like a repeating row inside of there, huh? That's
yes.
Okay, yeah, I should go play with that with my form I was just creating and go add a repeating little thing and see how that works. But
there's a date picker on here too, so if you click on the week ending field, it should pop up.
Ooh, that's pretty.
So if you add a date field from the designer, it will give you that date picker too, because it uses a jQuery UI for the date picker.
Oh, okay.
If that means anything to anybody.
Marcy Graham says, I'll definitely try it since it's free. And Jack says, this is my level of SharePoint. Not a full-on developer, but a developer light. Some quote coding when more efficient. Definitely a replacement for InfoPath for me. So
Sweet.
Jack's a fan. Okay, so the thing that you mentioned with, so first of all, I'm going to go into the existing form that I created and do some tweaks and show how that would work when you kind of make changes on the fly. And then the thing that you were talking about with the ability to do reporting off of this, is that something we can look at too?
I haven't done a live demo of that, so I I have a YouTube video that shows it, but I haven't. In fact, if you go to the forms7.codeplex.com site, there's a bunch of YouTube videos that demo a lot of the functionality, but I haven't played with the reporting in so long because it's something I implemented that didn't get a lot of attention yet, so I haven't done much to it. So if you look at if you scroll down, you should see one for the.
Put you on the spot, make you do a live demo that you weren't prepared for.
I could try. I just can't promise it's going to work.
Yeah. Okay, so I went ahead and put this link in the little showcase thing so that everybody can see that. All right. So again, this used to be something that you had to download, which is why you have a big download button. But you don't have to download it because, look, I just went to your little interface in Chrome and just worked with it straight in here.
Yeah,
so.
The download does have the actual source files and a couple of sample forms if you do download it.
Nice. Okay, good to know. And the videos. All right.
And videos.
Very cool. Yeah. So those are all the videos. All right. All right. So if I want to go make some tweaks to a form that I already created, I can go. Now it looks like it locked me down from being able to add. Like I don't have the add field thing here anymore. But I can still go tweak the form source and then refresh it here like this, right?
Correct. And the reason I do that is because for some of the fields I do have to generate some script for you. And this tool is it's not a smart tool right now. It's kind of a dumb tool. It looks at the form and generates the script one time. So if you try to generate the script again after going and editing, it would get messy.
Okay, so what I did was I just refreshed the page like that. And I'm going to go see if I can, I want to just be able to add some more fields maybe. So I'm going to go get my form source like this, maybe without the divs that you added in later. This is just me guessing, okay, as a power user, kind of what I would think a power user would do. And I'm going to go paste that in there and then go to Form HTML and say refresh. Okay, so that gives me a place to start over again. So I'm still kind of starting all over again, but I get the ability to go create the fields, right?
Now, the only caveat I'll say to what you did is if you were to have used, if there had been a field in your form, like a date field or the drop-down list that uses data from a SharePoint list, and you had done what you just did, you would have lost some functionality because there is script that needs to be generated for those fields. And by adding the field by just pasting in the HTML, this tool doesn't know it also needs to generate the script for those fields.
But though doing it this way and adding more fields, then when I get it ready, if I click generate script source and then take all that data and put it back in those two text files, would that be?
Well, I'm saying if you had pasted in a date field, it would not have generated the script needed for that date field when you click generate script source. So the field would still be there, but you wouldn't get the little calendar when you clicked on it.
Good to know.
Yeah, because it's a dumb field designer. It's not smart enough to know that you've pasted in a bunch of fields and I need to generate extra script for those fields.
Oh, okay. Cool. Great. That's the perfect kind of thing that I wanted to kind of discuss and cover in little weird questions like that in this demo. John has a question. If all the data is going to be stored in a single field in JSON format and the actual list fields are empty, would it be possible to put a workflow on the list that will extract the JSON data and push it to the actual list fields? Ooh.
Using a SharePoint designer workflow, I'm not sure.
Have the ability to do that?
You'd have to write. I'm not sure if you could do that much string parsing in a SharePoint designer workflow. I mean, theoretically, it's possible, especially with a custom workflow. You would read that as a string, and you could parse it, or you could, depending on if you're writing code, you could convert it to a JSON object. And yes, you could theoretically do that. I don't know if you could out of the box SharePoint designer workflow though.
The first thing that I would think of that I would need to do that for would be the stuff that's buried in a repeating table if you wanted to have that like as items in another list. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, but you would think you could use a dictionary item maybe in a 2013 SharePoint Designer workflow to iterate through those. I'm just guessing, but yeah.
I mean, I would be surprised if it worked in a SharePoint Designer workflow.
Yeah. Okay.
I could be wrong. I like being wrong, but I would be surprised.
You guys go ahead and try it out and let Mark know how it turns out. And then Byzantios says, since data is stored in JSON, how does SharePoint Search index this data? Is the data available to other web parts without coding?
Okay, it's a JSON object, but it's a JSON object as a string. So it would be searched in SharePoint as if it were just a bunch of text and a text in a multi-line field, right? And you can work with it that way as well. It's not actually an actual object until Forms7 consumes it and turns it back into what's called a JSON object. If that makes sense. In SharePoint, when it's in that field, it is just a string. It's not a special object at all.
Okay.
SharePoint sees it as a string.
Awesome. Great. Lots of great questions. Okay, so let me see. I'm going to try doing a repeating content container. And, oh, you know what? I'm going to do a I'm going to do a radio button field because this it works a little bit differently because of just the way it generates the way it looks. So I'm going to kind of go over just what I discovered about this and how, just kind of my thoughts on it. So I'm going to call this, let's see, what field can I use? Let me go look over my list. And again, it doesn't have to be a radio button in my actual list. It can just be a text field, but I'm going to make it look like a radio button in this little interface. So I'm going to say I want state or province to be just like a couple of different things as radio buttons. All right, so I'm going to go over and say state, and then radio button, and then the value is going to be what's stored in it when they pick this specific radio button, and then the group name I can just call that state too, right? Or states or something.
Group name is it's just a name that every radio button in that group belongs to.
Okay, so that it knows that those are all kind of
related. Yeah, HTML needs to know they're related. So when you click on one radio button, it unchecks the other.
And then this one's called work state in SharePoint is the internal name. So do work state. And then create the field. So that creates a single radio button. So then what I discovered is that what I really need to do is put actually what I want the selection to be called. So the value GA, and then state, and then work state, like that. So I would really want this to say state and then Alabama or Georgia or whatever, right? But I can go into the form source and do that. So I can just go in here and see that it says input ID equals Georgia, input ID equals state. So this one I can make it say, state colon space Alabama. Like that, and then input ID state. So that's just this way it kind of makes more sense when you're looking at it. So all I did is just change just the words that are showing on the form like that. And then I'd probably want to go put a little break in there. Maybe. And then refresh it. Okay, so that looks a little better like that. And then Salva says, how about lookup fields from a different list? So Mark, I can create a lookup field that looks up to another list, and does it have to be if I match it up to a lookup field, to a field list, does it have to be a lookup field too?
No, it doesn't. So let's go back to your SharePoint 2013 site.
Okay.
Your Office 365 site.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just quickly create a list called company, and we'll replace that drop-down list with one that uses a lookup.
Okay, just a custom list?
Yeah, just a custom list. And just call it company, companies, or whatever you want to call it.
Okay, whatever, yeah.
And then add some values to it.
Okay. Not very creative. let's see. Blue Yonder was the other Microsofty one, right? You know, when you're writing books, they make you use these specific.
They make you. I didn't know they made you use that. Okay.
Yeah, because you don't want to get into some kind of copyright issue with
Gotcha.
some company whose name you're using. So.
And you can keep title. You don't have to change the column name. But.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Because it's still called title as the internal name either way.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right. So if we go back to the form designer.
Okay. Where'd it go? What to do with it? There we go.
Okay. Go back to your form source.
Okay.
And go ahead and delete the company field that you have there with all the options. We'll recreate that as a drop-down.
Okay.
So now on the form designer, on the field piece, type in a company field name.
I'll call it Lookup this time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and then it's going to be a drop-down with list choices from a SharePoint list. And now you give it the list. What's the name of the company?
Oops.
And then what is the field within that list that you're going to be looking up, which is the title field.
Okay.
And then optionally you can tell it what do you want the first selection to be.
Oh, I like
select
that.
State, select none, or something.
Oh, okay. Pick a company or something.
Yeah, you could say pick a company.
I like that because in the out-of-the-box lookup field, it automatically defaults you to whatever the first one is.
Right.
The lookup. And that's going to be company, right? Yeah.
I think it was.
Yep, that was the internal name.
Okay, so click on Create Field. And so now it's got a select box here, but it's empty because it hasn't actually read from your list because it can't read from your list in this field.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So then I want to generate all this stuff again,
and then
right?
you would generate the script. Yeah, generate the script again.
Okay, so I'm going to go make sure I know what the name of my list is. Forms7 contacts. Why the 7, Mark?
Long story. So if you look at the source, you can see that it has the information for the select, which is nothing. It looks like a regular select, and there's no options in it. But if you go look at the script source now, you see there's a section here where it has a comment that says helper function to load a drop-down list.
Okay.
And that's the Form7 function that you need to use in order to do a lookup from another list.
Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy all this text, and I'm just going to use those same two text files that I have on my desktop and just replace the text in them and just save them both. And then form source and then script source. And then I'll just show you kind of how I quickly go update that. So I did this a whole bunch when I was just kind of playing with this yesterday just to kind of get familiar with it.
So, and what's also kind of, if you want to play with this, if you open up those files, if you use SharePoint Designer to go to your site assets library and you open up those files from within the site assets library in SharePoint Designer, when you paste in the script source and save it, it automatically uploads it back to the document library.
Nice. So that's a bonus of being able to use SharePoint Designer as opposed to all the stuff I'm doing. All right. So then I made sure I'm just going to leave these open on my desktop because I'm constantly changing stuff in them, and then just go drag those in there, or edit them directly in SharePoint Designer. All right, so now those are replaced. So now when I go to my little dashboard that I created, my Wednesday test, now it's got, look at that, cool. And even put them in alphabetical order.
Yeah, I didn't do that on purpose, I don't think.
That's nice. So that's just like JavaScript that does that, right?
Right.
Very cool. All right, so now I'll go, and I would definitely probably want to move the form, the submit button down to the bottom. And if I knew something about HTML and JavaScript, I could make different submit buttons that do different things, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's just HTML and JavaScript, so you can make it do whatever you want to do. Why don't you put in a bad email address so you can show them?
I'll just do it incomplete like that, and then.
Okay.
So what's the format need to be for the phone?
I think right now it's American phone number like that, yeah.
Okay. state and pick California.
So I've never saved the radio like you did, so we'll see how it works. I haven't promoted it, so we'll see if you broke something.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, that's this, georgiahere.com.
And there is, see how it put the error message, it kind of positioned it above the text box?
Uh-huh.
You can actually go in there and tweak the HTML and tell exactly where you want the error message to appear. So you can move the position of the error message as well.
Cool. All right, so that one saved that one in there. So let's go see what it looks like. So it put company is just a text field, but it put Blue Yonder in there. And then it put Georgia as the state, even though, you know, that's a text field as well. So it's really nice. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. We have a question. Let's see. Byzanto says, are there column data types that do not work well with this form? Example, external data or management data or calculated columns.
Well, since a calculated column is not a field you actually enter, I would say that, you know, you're not going to have a calculated field in a Form7 form.
That's true. Yeah.
And as far as, I have not tried with external data or managed metadata fields. There's no functionality written for managed metadata, and since it's got its own JavaScript all over the place to do that, I would say it probably would not work with it either, if I had to guess. So.
So also, I think that if it was an actual lookup field in the list and you were trying to write to it, because I know that the way the lookup fields store the data, I think it stores it as an ID or as this big long cryptic value. But it looks like when yours was a lookup to the other list, it just stored it in here as text. So I could imagine that there might be conflicts there if it was, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you could. Yes, if you wanted to promote it to a lookup field where it actually stores an integer and not the text of the field, you can do that. It's just not the way you created a form there. It's not designed to work that way. It would require you to write a little bit of JavaScript to make sure you use the ID instead of the text.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's, you know, the thing about the solution, if you're comfortable writing JavaScript, you can really make it do almost anything you want it to do.
Any developers in this chat window think this is cool or getting ideas for other fancy things you could do with forms, or anybody else have any questions? It's pretty cool. Okay. Yeah. So you said you implemented this in a couple of real-world scenarios, Mark?
Yeah. There's one client they're storing 9 different forms in one SharePoint list.
Oh.
And they're only promoting the fields they want to report on, so they really like it for that. And they're actually pushing 9,000 forms through it every 6 months.
Wow.
So, yeah, and they've been very, very happy with it. And then I know of other organizations that I see them email me questions, so I could, there's some other larger companies using it as well. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, everybody, just email Mark your questions.
Oh, yeah. You know, I have plenty of free time, right? And when you ask why I did things a certain way, it's because it's the way I did it. It's free. You want to pay for, if you want to pay for it, I'll make it do whatever you want. But
no complaining to Mark or bitching about his free product.
I offer money back guarantee.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a lot of fun. That's a great idea for just a really simple replacement and it makes me kind of want to go learn some, more HTML and JavaScript to be able to figure some of that stuff out, because, I'm the kind of person that if I go figure out some kind of snippet of something, then I'll go be able to put it in there. I just can't write the code from scratch, One more comment. Meryl says, I'm far from a dev, but I think there's some cool things that I can do. Thanks for the demo. Nice. And we have 21 live viewers, and we have 6 more minutes or so. So I don't know. I guess we could stop, or we could see if anybody else has any questions. But
and another thing I did with it, if there is a developer out there listening, is I had a client who stores a lot of employee information in Cognos, which is a reporting system. And what we did is we created a web part in .NET to where a user would enter the employee's ID, and it would actually call a web service to retrieve all the employee information from Cognos, and then it populated all the fields in the Forms7 form with the employee's information, so they didn't have to go through and type all those fields.
Oh.
So if if you've got the abilities, you can write custom code and interact with your form still that way. And or you can, I mean, the possibilities grow with your abilities to do things.
You know, the first thing that occurs to me is I would want to go into my little form web parts and just change. I know that it doesn't like it when you go and, of course, I'm clicking around on my screen when you go in there and remove the out-of-the-box web parts out of your form web parts, but I might go play with that and try that out. Selva says, is there a way we can migrate InfoPath forms to Forms7?
So it depends, right? If there's any code behind on your InfoPath forms, you absolutely can't just migrate that over, because that's not going to be something that can migrate over. If you're using things using the user profile service in InfoPath, that's not going to migrate over. What you can theoretically do, though, is take the raw HTML from any form, InfoPath. I've even taken a Word document and saved it as HTML, and went through and turned that into a Form7 form by just using the HTML generated from Word. In fact, there's one of those videos shows that.
Oh, okay.
So theoretically, if you've got the HTML for a form, that's all the HTML you need for a Form7 form. You just have to make sure that each of your fields have the right attributes to work with Form7. So although there's not a straight migration path, you could theoretically do something. But any code behind you're going to have to rewrite.
Yeah, cool. So you would think with InfoPath you would be able to say if you had at least promoted data into columns, that at least that data would be something that you could go, create just create it as a list and put the data itself and just be able to create a different form on top of the data if you were worried about losing your data.
Yeah,
but the form itself, I can see that would be.
The data in your own form is the thing I always point out to people is if it was easy to migrate out of InfoPath, Nintex or K2 would have done it by now. Right?
Great point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and just say we're going to wrap it up for the day, and I don't see any more questions coming in, but great little free product, and that was a lot of fun. Mark's M. Rackley at Twitter, and then are you going to be at Ignite conference?
I will be at Ignite, yes. I don't know if I'll actually be attending the conference, but I'll be in Chicago for the festivities.
Yeah.
It's a little pricey for me this year, but...
Oh, gosh, yeah, I know. Whew. Okay, well, I'm not sure what our demo next Wednesday is going to be, but just keep an eye on, follow us on Twitter, and we have it's YouTube/SharePoint is where all these videos get stored, and you can watch them all later. So thanks, everybody, and over and out.
Thanks.